That's the sound of the man working on the chain gang.
Can you hear me say it?
Keep it right there.
Yeah. Come on. Swing. Sing for me.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Swaggy Vets podcast. I'm your host, Big Pen. I got my co-host and my best friend here with me. What's up, baby? Oh,
What's
look at him.
going on? What's going on, Swaggy Vets, all our friends and family? How y'all doing out there?
Man, it's a beautiful day. We're here doing a beautiful podcast with some beautiful people. So, man, I'm not going to cut to the BS, but I just got one thing. We got the Tough Mudder coming up April 26th in Atlanta, Georgia. So if y'all want to come out and hang out with the Swaggy Vets, hit us up on social media, hit us up on Facebook, hit us up on Instagram, hit us up on YouTube, right here, what you watching. Also, we got the donations. If you go to the Swaggy Vet Facebook page, we got a Tough Mudder donation page. Make sure y'all go there. You want to help some veterans out, come out and fellowship and hang out. Make sure y'all do it. It's a GoFundMe we got for the Tough Mudder. All right, we got special guests.
Very special guests.
We got special guests coming from my home state of Florida. So we're just going to bring them on. We got U.S. Army veteran Roger Pawlak.
You did great.
Awesome, man. How's your morning going? It's early.
It's going well. Got the coffee and you're rolling.
The nation helps the day go by.
What kind of coffee you got?
Me? Yeah. What kind of coffee you got, Roger?
The it's some sort of espresso thing that's that my wife gets some Keurig thing she orders through Amazon. I think San Francisco Bay Company, I think is what it's called. Now that I think about it.
I got
a great wife. She makes all my stuff. Sorry. And your caffeine, sir?
I got some Black Rifle coffee. They're not sponsoring this, but I drink some Black Rifle. Me and my wife, we went and got an espresso machine and do one little shot. That'll get me going. So I drink that a little bit and it gets me going in the morning. What about you, John? You got some caffeinated beverage?
Man, I got that good old Love's gas station.
Shameless plug for Love's.
You feel me? The good old sunshine for truckers.
Yeah. So, Roger, you grew up in a small town, right?
Yes, sir.
You had you had a really good relationship with your dad. How did that influence your mindset about the service, and how did that guide you?
I can remember when I was a kid, I really looked up to him like he was my hero. When I came a teenager, I lost my mind a little bit. He lost some of his luster, but he always really was my hero. I always looked up to him. He used to tell war stories about World War II in Germany and stuff like that. So it totally influenced. And even though he wanted me to go in the Air Force because he wanted me to have a better life than he did because of the way he was treated in the Army, I still was always pulled towards the Army. So when an Army recruiter came through a friend, boom, it was I was like all gung ho. And he was like, no, you need to go in the Air Force. So I'm like, okay, I'll talk to the Air Force veteran. Or, I did want to fly, but then the Army recruiter was like, hey, man, you can fly helicopters. I'm like, what? And then he showed me Apache videos, and I'm like, man, okay, so that's pretty cool. I never knew you could do that in the Army. But, yeah, so I definitely looked up to my dad huge.
I've known have had the gift of gab. They know how they're good salesmen.
Yeah. He definitely sold it all day long. Yeah, and he went above and beyond. Like he would come and take us to play basketball. I wasn't interested in doing all the other activities that they did, but playing basketball, a sport, absolutely. But he's like, hey, do you want to come and do push-ups, sit-ups, run? I'm like, no. A sport, I love a sport all day long, but I'm not, I don't want to do I don't mind training for sports, but if I'm doing sports, then I want to train. But if I'm just doing exercise, I feel like a hamster on a wheel or something. But yeah.
So you didn't have that. So did you try to go in the Air Force? You said the
So the Air Force, what happened was I told the recruiter, I'm like, hey, my dad really wants me to go in the Air Force. He doesn't even want me talking to you, and I would like to sort of talk to him. I kind of would like to see if I can go in the Air Force. And so he got me set up to go see the Air Force recruiter, which is right across the hall from him. And then when I went in there, they were just like treated me like they didn't want. I told them, hey, they're like, hey, what do you want to do? I'm like, hey, I'd like to fly. Oh, well, only the 1% can fly in the Air Force and all that stuff. And he's like, just I don't know. They were kind of. I feel like as an adult, I look back, I'm like, hey, I wonder if my recruiter, the Army recruiter, gave him $50 to treat me like garbage so they could get me, because it was right after Desert Storm and they didn't need anybody. So they weren't trying to like win me. Whereas this Army recruiter was like all about it, trying to get me in as best he could. So that was the Air Force thing. I'm like, yeah, that kind of discouraged me. So I'm like, well, I can fly in the Army is what my thought and goal was initially.
So your dad wanted you to do Air Force, and you mentioned they're kind of nonchalant, didn't feel like you were wanted over there. How'd that kind of make you feel? Did you feel rejected?
Oh yeah, totally rejected. And me being a kid at that age, I was so full of myself. I'm like, I thought it was, the way the Army recruiter had already treated me. I felt I was like God's gift to the military is the way he treated me. And then when I go over there and they treat me like I'm like just Joe Schmo nobody, and that I couldn't even pass. They made it feel like I couldn't even pass to get into the program. So I'm like, well, okay, well I'll just go with the Army because they'll guarantee me a job. That was the other thing too. The Army recruiter was like, hey, they can't guarantee you a job, but we can. You put we'll make sure you get that job. You know, so yeah, definitely felt rejected, and then felt absolutely loved by the Army recruiter. So, yeah. So
So
I really
knowing
appreciated being on today. I really, really believe in what you guys are doing. I look forward to seeing more of what you're doing in the future. And if anybody else out there really likes what you heard or seen today, go on to Swaggy Vets and like, comment, and subscribe.
knowing, you know, you looked up to your dad and he wanted you to go a certain way, but you ended up signing those papers at 17. How did that what did your father say after that?
Well, so my father was uh, hard to get him to say yes, but if I really wanted something, I could keep coming back to him and keep coming back to him, and so until he finally said yes, and um, so he reluctantly signed it. I remember like on the table and stuff. He's like, "Well, I don't know," but he signed it for me, and just because he knew I really wanted to do it, and I assured him because I hadn't yet picked my job. I assured him that I will pick a job that's going to keep me out of he wanted me to basically pick a desk job, and I'm like, I will do that. But then I also, I might be skipping ahead, but I also went and when I did go to MEPS and was talking to the MEPS recruiter, um, I told him that I wanted to fly, and he got bored with all of the printout, and he was like, well, you can be a personnel action specialist. They do the packets for people that fly. They do warrant officer flight packets. And I knew enough because my recruiter had told me that I wanted to go warrant officer flight. He said, when you go in there, tell them you want to do warrant officer flight. And so that was sort of the deal. I felt like I was helping my dad out, trying to get a desk job and being able to go warrant officer flight.
What attracted you most to flying? Why did you have your mindset, man, I really want to fly?
Yeah, yeah. So that was really the Air Force, right? So every morning, my dad and I would get up early, and we before the TV would come on, we'd be waiting for to come on, and they would do the Air Force commercials, or it was like a off we go into the wild blue yonder, and it would show the jets flying. So it was like a connection with my dad, sitting there watching you know, the jets fly. Because I'm a little bit older, so that we used to have back in the day that TV wasn't 24/7, so we had the multicolored thing waiting for the TV to go on. So first thing in the morning, right after that would be cartoons. So I was up with my dad, hanging out, on the couch, waiting for it to come on, and that would come on, and it just inspired me all the time. So that was the thing I definitely wanted to fly when I was a kid.
Nice, man.
So, Mr. Pawlak, you also went to Bosnia as well, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned that it was the moment that you stopped being a naive kid.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I had grown up in northwestern Pennsylvania, and where that is back in the day was pretty pretty backwoods. Sort of like if you went there, it was like 30 years behind, right? So when I was in Bosnia, it was like the same thing. When we went through the zone of separation, I was on a mission with some other folks in my unit, and we went through the zone of separation, and we saw tanks in the middle of people's houses that looked just like where I grew up in northwestern Pennsylvania. The same siding on the house, everything. And I'm like, they had blown out the house, the tank was blown out, and I'm like, this, you just kind of like felt like I was at home, and this was happening sort of at home, if that makes any sense. And then, and then one other thing that one time we were bringing colonel, we were convoying a colonel onto our fob, and basically when he was coming on, they basically told us, listen, if those kids come through that gate, you need to shoot them because they're not to come on our on the property. And I'm like, man, they're just little kids, right? So, but that was kind of you get real after that. And then there was another situation when we were putting up the concertina wire around the perimeter, looking at the mountain. I'm like, this is not really the best place to be because I'm like, there could just be snipers right up there just taking us out. And me being in that unit that I was the 60 gunner, and we also had the tower, and it was just like a wooden tower right in the middle. And I'm like, I'm like, looked up, I'm like, if anything happens, I'm going to be there. First off, these snipers are going to be shooting there. I'm not now, wasn't infantry, of course, but at the same time, I was smart enough to know that this is not the best place. We're not. Well, I felt like sitting ducks, so it was just like, you just, the realization comes that hey, this isn't just something we were training for anymore. This became a little bit more real, so definitely stopped being a naive kid at that point.
Right. So when you had got that command to shoot kids that came up to the compound, how did that change your perspective?
Yeah, yeah. Just I don't know. I can still really sort of still see the little kids running along the outer perimeter gate, and just like thinking, man, those are cute little kids. They're nothing. They're not a harm. They're not a threat. And I understand. The people um, in the chain of command were you know just trying to protect everybody, right? So we didn't know what the kids had on them, didn't have on them. But at the same time, I'm just like, I really highly doubt there's any issue. But, um, it just kind of opens your eyes, just makes you think this is real. Because if I do that, I kind of was the type of soldier that if you ordered me to do something, I'm pretty much going to do it unless it's absolutely against the law, so to speak, I guess. But, I'm like, that's a lawful order. And I'm like, man, can't believe that I would have to carry that.
Yeah, I think a lot of veterans struggle with the idea of taking lives. Let alone you got an order to take away a kid's life. That's kind of a different feeling when you told that, like especially with your leadership. So I know it probably changed your perspective on how you saw your leadership as well. I know it would for me.
Yeah,
And when you was out there,
definitely.
I know you were in infantry, but you also volunteered to be when you was in Bosnia. You was the M60 gunner.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Was
hmm
that along
hmm
when you did that? Were you on convoys?
No, no. Mainly, it would have been mower in the fob. So when we were in the convoy, I just took my M16 with me. But when we were there, they expected me, if anything broke out, that I would, man the tower. Um, you know, That was the main.
What made you want to take on that responsibility?
Man, like I was like gung ho. I wanted everything. Like I volunteered for everything. I'm like, because even though I was, um, even though I was personnel, POG, personnel other group, whatever is what they used to call us. But I looked at it as like I still wanted to do something, right? To serve my country. Very patriotic. My father served in World War II. Both grandfathers served in World War II. So my mind, I'm like anything I can do to one honor our country and three, um, two. I don't know. I don't even know the numbers. I'm like one, two, three. I'm sorry about that, but I just anything. I was gung ho, wanted to do that. Looked up to my uh, parent and grandparents as like they really did something, and I wanted to be able to also contribute back and just give to our country. Um, and so that was the thing is, and like I like to shoot, right? So the six, I'm like it's a fully automatic weapon. I would love to learn how to do it, and I'll go do it. And any other thing that they would put me on, earlier I heard you say before we had talked about Fort Lewis, Washington, and when I was at Fort Lewis, I had also volunteered to go to Somalia. Like, so these guys are coming back. I knew I had a bunch of friends that were infantry and stuff, and they were coming back, and they were shot up a little bit back in '92 and '93, and I'm like, I signed up and wanted to go there too, and I'm like, as I look back, I'm like, man, I was such a dumb. I'm like, why would I, you know, you know, but I did. I just was just so gung ho that I just wanted to make sure that I could volunteer for anything. That ended up on not. We didn't go. They ended up sending 10th Mountain instead of us over at Lewis. We were supporting 9th ID back then, and they were going to send the Ranger Bat as far as we knew, and we were locked, cocked, ready to rock on at McCord Air Force Base. But then they called it down, and they sent 10th Mountain. But I was frustrated. I mean, I'm like thinking, I want to go. I want to be in the mix and do whatever I can to serve.
Hmm. So break this down for me, Roger. What was the reason for being deployed to Bosnia? What was the mission set there?
So basically, initially it was we were going over to stop the war. Basically, it was Russia and Milosevic in Serbia were ethnic cleansing against the Bosnians and the Croatians. It was like a three-way war. As far as I know, like I'm not the greatest historian. I'm just going from what I remember back then. But so they were ethnic cleansing, and so then NATO, or no, the UN was stepping in to stop it, and then we were going over to end the war. Um, and I guess in '95 they had shot down the Russians had shot down one of our. I think it was a U-2, but it was definitely a reconnaissance sort of airplane. And then we were kind of like, hey, as far as I know, we were like, hey, we're done with this. We're going to stop all of this. And so then we moved in, and it went, but it luckily quickly went from a war to a peacekeeping mission. Went from an implementation forces that say we're going to stop this, and then it moved to the stabilization force, and that's actually on my hat. But I4S4, but that was it, and then we were there to just sort of keep the peace. Um, Afterwards, after '95, then '96, it just turned into we only had to worry about some rogue folks at that point. Like they just tell. That's why I was saying about snipers, because we were concerned. And then my first week there, that you say that, that just reminded me that it was during Ramadan, and they're like telling us, listen, if they shoot, if you hear shooting, don't assume that it's don't start shooting back, right? Don't start shooting at the people, because it could be that they're just shooting in the air, right? They're not shooting at you. So that was the sort of thing. But it was just ended up peacekeeping between. It actually right now with the Ukraine stuff, it actually reminds me a lot of that's been going on, over there. But obviously Russia and Milosevic they were winning, so we went in there to stop and put set up peace.
So how long was you there for? How long was you boots on ground?
Um, so it ended up being boots on ground. 4 months, I think it was, at the beginning of the end of '95. I know because that was I went. My daughter was born in '95, so they actually the my wife was pregnant, and they actually induced labor for her to have her just before I deployed. So then, so it would have been '95, and then into '96. I'd come back. They'd sent me back to do PLDC, which I don't know if they still have that back then. That was for stuff. But anyways, yeah. So it ended up being 4 months, boots on the ground.
I remember, Penn, you might can relate. Remember the deployment was so big that soldiers were missing their uh, career progression courses, such as PLDC, BNOC, because they was going back to back deployments, and they had made it mandatory that if anybody didn't have these schools, they had to be pulled up. They had to be slotted, and if they had a school, they'd have been pulled back from deployment to go to these schools.
Well, not only that, in order to go to PLDC, in order to make your E5, you had to go to PLDC. I remember we were doing like 15-month deployments. They were giving out people waivers. So, hey, here's a waiver. You don't have to go to that school. You can still get promoted. We had a guy go from E2 to E5 on 1 hour deployments.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
wow, that's crazy. That's crazy.
I
Yeah.
mean, the reason he did that because he was a mechanic. We were on the personal security detachment for the colonel, so the colonel saw him and he did some really good stuff. Like we broke down some places and he fixed it. They were like, "How the heck did you fix this?" And the
Mm.
colonel saw that, so he's kind of fast tracked a little bit.
Yeah. Hey, I was watching this. I was watching this military war, and there was this one brave guy. Like he wasn't in charge, but everybody was dying, and he kept telling everybody to move forward, move forward. And he picked up the flag, and the guy said, "Hey you, what's your rank?" And he was like, "Private such and such." He was like, "You signed it now." I was like, it was that easy back in the day.
Battlefield promotion, baby.
A battlefield promotion. He was like, "Hey man, yeah, you leading everybody. You in charge."
Hmm.
you
Hey,
know.
so
I
Roger,
remember-
you've been through a lot of trials and tribulations in your life, man, and it kind of speaks to your resilience. You've been through alcoholism, divorce, homelessness. You know, what was the darkest night of your life, and what stopped you from giving up?
So probably the darkest time would have been when I came back from Bosnia. I lost my wife and daughter, and they moved back. But then after that, I ran into alcoholism. Right, I was kind of thinking about this. So when I ran into alcoholism, I hit a wall. Right, I just kept drinking, and I couldn't stop. So the darkest hour was like after I had gotten in trouble for a DUI and a car accident in Germany. Um, I still couldn't stop myself from drinking because the worse it got, the more I wanted to drink because that was my coping mechanism. And I know that now. Back then, I didn't know. I just, was on a self-destructive path that was there. And then I got in trouble again. I'm on restrictions, on barracks restrictions, and I still went out and got in trouble again. So the darkest hour was like when I was just told, "Hey, you're going to get a misconduct discharge from the sergeant major, and we're going to let you go to rehab, but you're still going to go home." And so, at that point, I'm just like, "Man, why even try?" But then I'm like, at least maybe if I go to rehab, I can get straight and not, just totally self-destruct because I did have my daughter and I did want to be, alive for her, but I couldn't figure out how to stop drinking. I absolutely could not figure it out. I would tell myself, "Don't do it." Like I'd go in the mirror and be like, just looking at myself, like, "Man, you're better than this. You can't. You just need to not do this." And but it wouldn't matter. At some point, I would just start with one, and then it was all over from that point. So that was definitely the darkest hour because I just couldn't figure it out. And I'm like, well, at least I'll go to rehab. I get a misconduct discharge, go and do whatever, but I'll at least go to rehab.
And then you had one of your sergeant majors gave you a chance when nobody else wouldn't.
Yeah. So after rehab, um, before rehab, I was an atheist. I didn't believe in God at all. And so while I got there, they're like, "Hey, you're going to go to 12-step meetings." And I'm like, I don't even know what's a 12-step meeting? You're going to go to AA. I'm like, I don't know what that is. I've never ever heard of it. The small town where I'm from, I zero, no at all clue of what that was. And so they're like, well, yeah, you're going to have to go to AA meetings. I'm like, okay, cool. But then once I went to my first one, they go right through the steps. And the second step was you came to believe a power greater than yourself could restore you to sanity. I'm like, nah, I don't believe in God at all. Like at all. I'm an atheist. I've been an atheist, blah, 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 blah. So, but I did have this orderly. There was this orderly there that was really a cool guy. I just liked out of everybody else, this guy just seemed cool. So I was talking to him. I found out that he was a Christian. So I asked him, I'm like, hey, I don't want to fail this thing. Like this, I'm like, I want to at least get through this program because I'm out of here anyhow. I got a misconduct discharge. It don't matter. I want to get through here. So he's like, well, if you just, I just asked him, how is it that you believe in God? Because that just seems silly. You're like, that's real silly. And he's like, my pastor told me that if you just have a basic open mind to the belief that maybe God could exist, then maybe you could believe. And I'm like, wow, okay, well, I got an open mind. I'm open to this and that and the other. At the time, was open to all kinds of things, but God, right? I didn't believe in that. So I went to bed that night thinking, oh man, that's interesting. Let me at least think about it. And as I thought about it, I woke up at like 2 a.m. or something, and I just like had this revelation of understanding, like, because I was kind of a science kid. I was a little nerdy kid. Really believed in science, believed in evolution, believed in all this other stuff, and that's where it just sort of pushed out belief in God. My father was a Catholic, my mom was a Protestant. They believed in God, but I just pushed it out, so and stuff like that. But at this point, it just was an eye-opening thing for me that said, okay, God, every human has this desire to do good. Like, I don't care who you are, from a child, you have this desire to do good. I'm like, you don't need that for evolution. This is just the revelation that sort of came to me that night. Like, you don't have to have that. Like, there's no need for that for evolution. None of our dogs, cats, anything, they don't have that same, I got to do good. They don't have that. They do good when they're around us because we teach them. But other animals that you can evolve without that. So, long story, but I just was like, that's it. I'm like, there is something out there. I'm like, and it was just downloaded into my spirit that there was. And from that point forward, like literally that day, I was like, I believe there is a God, and I believe, I will start to go with that. And in the programs of recovery, it said that you have to believe, try to believe that it's caring, loving. And so with that, that's when I kind of was like, uh, let's go with that. And
Mm-hmm.
and that was like a catalyst. And from that point forward, I started to believe that this creator was on my side. And like you had said with my sergeant major, when I did finish that program successfully, I decided that even though I'm getting a misconduct discharge, I'm going to go to JAG and ask them if there's anything I can do to change the outcome. Can I repeal it? It's like, well, the only thing you can do, because it's Article 15, that there was no sort of court that I could go to. So all I did is went to every single person I ever knew and got them to write a statement. I took that to my sergeant major. It was like a nice packet, because when I was at work and doing my job, I got along with everybody. I did what I needed. I excelled. But when I got off, I was off the rails. So everybody liked me. So I got everybody to put a thing in there, and then the sergeant major said, "Hey, give me one good reason." It went through the lieutenant colonel, and bomb holder. He's like, "Hey, give me." It's up to the sergeant major whether he keeps you in or not. And I went to the sergeant major, and he's like, "Hey, give me one good reason why we should keep you in." And I'm like, "Well, sergeant major, before rehab, I would have told you there's no reason to keep me in because I don't know how to stop at all. But once I went through rehab and I came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity, I think I have a chance to stay sober now. I literally would have been honest with him and said, "Listen, don't even try." But now I believe I can, and I have a chance. And can I guarantee that I'll never drink again? No, I can't, Sergeant Major. But I can tell you that I believe that God can help me keep sober. That's it. That's all I know. And he took a chance. Later, I found out he was a Christian, so I didn't know that at the time. I found out later because when it's kind of cool how he reveals stuff. My next duty assignment, I'm there, and then this first sergeant was that knew Sergeant Major Ford, his name was Sergeant Major Ford, came and sort of told me his background, and I'm like, wow, that's cool. Like I didn't know, and I actually got to talk to him afterwards and thank him after he let me in. I was an E1, nothing on my chip, and very humiliating, but at the same time, I was happy because I didn't care. Like at least I wasn't kicked out because this was something I always wanted to do, and I didn't want to be a mess up, right? So it was a second chance, and I was very grateful.
What did you? When was the first time that you felt the spirit that you were talking about? Your transformation, and how did that feel?
Yeah, I'd like literally right then that night. My whole spirit changed, and I felt a presence of a creator. And so, as you say, that it reminds me because what happened was this spirit took me back through the history and said, "Do you remember when this happened? When this happened? When this happened? That was me." Like I had this time where I was at this buddy of mine. I'm actually kind of getting chills right now. It reminded me, I was at a buddy's house in it was Olympia, Washington. His mom, he was from Bolivia. This buddy of mine, and his grandmother was there at the house. And he's like, "Man, you got to be on your best behavior because she's a believer, and you can't do da 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 da." I was at her house, so we didn't even hardly drink. We used to like to drink back then too, right? And so I come there, and I didn't drink. I might have had one beer, and I was chill. Well, that night, all of a sudden, I just felt this weird sort of presence in the room, like. And I think maybe it was a setup because my buddy was a Christian. And I think he really wanted me to have his grandmother pray for me. I don't know. But anyways, it was just like the spirit that hit me, like revealed, like, hey, this incident that you had, that you felt this, that was me telling you I'm here. And then fast forward, and all these things where bad things happened that kept making me be even more of an atheist. Like you just drove. God's like, hey, um, I was there. When I wrecked my car into the tree, I was not wearing a seatbelt. I smashed into a tree, and I smashed the steering wheel off with my face. I was bleeding down my shirt. I took it off, but no seatbelt, smashed into a tree, no broken bones. I walked away. He's like, "Do you not think that I might have been there to put my hand on your chest?" Like it was just like this feeling that I'm like, all those times, God was there. I'm like, and so, and do you not think that I kept you out of harm's way when you wanted to go to Somalia? Maybe I was there to keep you there because you might have died there and all this other stuff because it was a pretty big kill rate back then. I think it was 47%, and I didn't know that then. But I'm just like, I want to go there and get some medals on my chest and do the thing like that. But so yeah, I right then at that night, it would have been 1997, would have been right around June, shortly after. It had to have been June '97 because I know my mom was mad because when I went into rehab, she thought that I forgot her birthday. I couldn't call nobody, so I know it was that. So it was like boom, it was just downloaded immediately. Um, so yeah, it was. I needed that because I don't think it would have been. I would have a slow change to believing in God wasn't going to get me. I'm kind of a black and white way. I'm either all in or I'm all out. That's the same, like I'm all in the army or I'm all out of the army. That was kind of the whole way I operated back then.
Well, I think God has a way of working it out for us and in us. So you're meant to do what you're supposed to do. You're meant to be where you're supposed to be. He's he has this divine set for you.
Agenda.
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Kind of like a divine agenda. Like he already knows where you're going to be, the beginning to the end. Boom. Yeah.
mhm.
So, Roger, there's a way.
Yeah. So after after I got out of the Army, I did get back with, so I had gotten divorced while I was in Germany, but then when I got back, I got remarried to my wife and daughter. I didn't immediately start going to rooms of recovery, but then eventually, when that marriage broke down again, I started looking like, I'm like, hey, I'm starting to go backwards here mentally. I might start drinking again. I need to get back. So I went back to the rooms. I actually ended up homeless. That's when I was homeless for a while during that time frame, because I was kind of going backwards. But then I'm like, okay, God, I can't go. I can't keep going backwards, because I end up drinking again, and it could be all over. So I went back to the rooms of recovery, and then with that, I started learning that, other people's stories help me. Then in that program, you're expected to give back, and you become a sponsor for other people. And so I started sponsoring people. I came and I was homeless in St. Louis at the time, and I called. I'm like, I don't. Why am I in St. Louis? I don't know anybody here. I'm just here because I was following a job and trying to be an entrepreneur and all this stuff, and ended up homeless and all that. But then I called family here in Florida and came. They came and picked me up and brought me here because they needed help with their job, with their business, and I, both of us were like, it's a family thing. They also were going. They had just gone to a rehab, or not a rehab, but started going to 12-step meetings, AA, stuff like that. And they're like, hey, if you come down here, you need to go. I need to go. So we just kind of both were going to meetings. I started getting sponsees and helping people in the programs of recovery. It's basically, you can't keep what you have without giving it away. So I started like sponsoring people, and I recognized that, hey man, I like this. I like enjoying giving back to people. So then, while I was down here, the business with my family member went down the tubes. So again, I'm like, hey, I need to figure something out. And I went to Career One Stop, and they're like, hey, I was like, I need to do something. I don't know. I need a job. My business it failed. And they're like, well, you were in the military, right? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, we got VA people, counselors for you that they can help you. So I went to them, and they're like, hey, did you ever hear of Voc Rehab? And I'm like, nope, never heard of that. And they're like, okay, well, we can, get you, see if you can qualify to get to college and whatever. But when you do it, you have to take a test. So I had to take a test to see what sort of jobs they would want to put me in. So I was doing the Voc Rehab thing. I take the test, and they're like, well, counselor or pastor might be a good thing for you to do. And I'm like, wow, that's cool. I can actually get paid to do what I'm doing in the 12-step programs, helping people. Oh yeah. So I sort of went that route. And so I went on, got my degree through the Voc Rehab in psychology. And then they don't pay for like a master's degree, but they did pay for the bachelor's. And while I was there, I just kept trusting God. What actually happened is the more I trusted God, the more things would happen. And so when I went to school, I'm like, I don't know where he's going to make it happen, but I know that I'm supposed to do a master's degree, and if it's supposed to happen, he'll pay for it. I just know that. And so, and that's basically what happened. So when I finished out the degree, they told me that if I worked at the university, they would pay for my degree. So I started working at the university as like food service in that place. I'm like, I'll do anything. It don't matter. I'll do food service. That'll pay for your degree. I did that. But then my body was saying, hey, you can't do that. Food service is not good for your back. You're hurting yourself. And I'm like, hey, but so I knew that I had to get out of that. And so I started applying for jobs with the university, doing different jobs. And I applied for an admin job. And because I was working and they saw me at the food service, the actual director of sports, the sports director, he recognized me, and he's like, hey, I know you. And he hired me. So I got hired on with in the sports administration part of it. And that paid for my degree. And then when that was my wife got laid off, I needed to get a different job, and I had to get something making more money. Then at that same time, that transition, they needed somebody in my degree program to be the oh my gosh, the graduate assistant. They're like, hey, we need somebody to be. the way that it kind of worked is like everything just happened along the way is like little breadcrumbs that were like, hey, God was saying, hey, I'm going to get you there. And I just trusted. I just kept trusting, and boom, I would get there. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but once I got to that place, boom, it was revealed. Like I didn't know, but I would just keep moving forward, and it just kept opening up, and then, um, I got my degree through all of that, and God paid for it all. Like the whole master's degree was totally paid for by the university and other things. Um, so now I'm a counselor. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I'm helping people, helping veterans. I work directly with the VA, helping uh, combat veterans and folks with military sexual trauma. So you ask a vet a question, man, it can go on for a long time. I'm sorry.
No, man,
That's awesome.
that was an inspiring story, man. I
Absolutely.
like it because it was you was able to really understand throughout this whole process how God was keeping you on your path.
Amen.
You know,
Amen. Yeah.
so but was there a time when you struggle with still trying to keep down those past traumas or like those addictions or the loss of your wife and family while dealing with others and their problems as well?
Yeah. So
How'd you get through those times?
there were two major times where that was when I first was going when I was going to school. I started working at a rehab for substance abuse, and when I was working there, all of a sudden I'm getting everybody else's traumas, and I realized that I had traumas, and like so all this stuff started coming back up, and I didn't know what was going on. One night, I couldn't. I just after I was working there, I'm trying to help these folks, and the next thing I know, I can't sleep, and I'm like, I'm waking up, I'm having nightmares. I'm like, what is this? I'm like, and I was going through school for the counseling at the same time, and I was like, I don't know what's going on, but it came to me again, and like a revelation. Hey, this is what it is. I pulled up the DSM-4 TR, which was back then. That's what we were using. Now it's a 5, but and a 5 TR. But anyways, so I pick up the thing, and I'm like, I think this is what it is. I started reading. I'm like PTSD. I started reading. I'm like, why didn't I know this? Like, I'm like, okay, these are all the symptoms. So then I'm like, okay, well, I need to get help. I'm going to go to the VA and ask them for help. And so I went and saw a psychiatrist and asked her, and I'm like, hey, I think this is what's going on. She's like, yeah, you're definitely describing PTSD. I'm like, so then I was diagnosed at that point for PTSD, and started going to counseling, started getting help for it. And so that was one time that I needed help through that, and that totally helped. But then fast forward, another time that was very similar was when I started working for the VA. The first time, and I was working in a stress treatment program in Bay Pines, Florida, which is worked with just combat veterans, and it was people coming right out of the service right into a program. A lot of them, some of them were people that had been out for a while, but most of the people were like straight off. And all of a sudden I'm like, man, this is hitting me again. Like, and this time I went back. I had not been seeing my psychiatrist. I got better. I was doing good. But then you learn there's something called chronic PTSD, that sometimes things come back and you're sort of reminded and things, and that you didn't. So anyways, so I had to go back and go back to the same psychiatrist. And then, but also one of the things that I did different this time was I didn't really relate with the social worker back then, but God put somebody in my life right at the same time that could relate. And then I started talking. That I was going to. There was a chaplain for the Volusia County is where we're at, and he was a chaplain for the Volusia County Sheriff's Office. And I had reached out to him, and we started meeting every sort of Saturday. Just sort of, I just felt like I was drawn to it. I felt like I needed a father figure at that point, also, and we just started talking, and we've been meeting ever since. And that was back in 2015. That happened, and so we just because he works for the sheriff's department, he understands PTSD real well, and we were just able to sort of meet and do that. And there's been a times when some rough patches where I've had to go back to my and go to a social worker at um, the local VA to sort of get a little bit more intensive stuff, because there's things they're called evidence-based practices, which I knew that talking to um, my mentor um, works great and stuff, but also sometimes you need a little bit extra. And that's where I was like, I need a little bump up. I need to talk to somebody and get do go through like a little bit of a program. So yeah, so I know that it's kind of for me, it's going to always be something that I need to be aware of, that I could always need to go back and get help. And it's not a big deal to go back and ask for that help, right? It's not a one. I've learned chronic PTSD is not a one and done. And so I understand that for my clients now, and I understand it experientially. The funny thing is, I always feel like God kind of gives us that sort of thing. Like you're supposed to experience something so that you can help somebody else. You always got an individual experience, but it's also meant for the corporate experience to help others. And so that's kind of been my thing. Is like I'm like, okay, God, you put me through this because I know something's going to happen. Like, and I'm going to need to help somebody, and that's totally always been. I've said it. I say this to clients, and I also say it, for myself. Right? God is a God of conservation, right? So if He gives us something and puts us through it or whatever, He's going to want that to be efficient for everybody else. It's yeah, it happened to you. You get this benefit, but it's also to benefit everybody else.
That's a great story, Roger. Now you've been through, like we talked about before. You've been through a lot. Homelessness, addiction, divorce, all that. But today, you're a big advocate, and you you be, you like being the best version, best dad, the best husband that you can be today. Now,
Yes, sir.
what would you say to the previous version of yourself who thought he lost everything?
Hey, man. Yeah, yeah. I would be. Um, that I'm going to try. I'm getting a little emotional because I can really kind of see him, right? And so I would say, man, just never give up, brother. It will get better. Like it will get better, and you have no idea. You think that you're like it's too late, that you're old. Like it's never too late, right? You're breathing. You just keep on. Like when you're on a long ruck march, right? We had a situation when I was in basic where that we had reservists taking us around post and they got us lost. Like we were lost. So we ended up supposed to be a small ruck march turns into a ridiculous whatever. So you just keep rucking, right? The main thing is you just keep going because you're never going to get there if you don't keep going. And you kept going, and it was like, yeah, it's going to be hard. And it's like you feel like you're never going to make it. You're going to get blisters. You're going to rip your underwear off so you don't get any more blisters. You're going to do all kinds of crazy things, but you just keep rucking, keep moving and that that's what I would have told him, and I think that God sort of downloaded that in me that night in rehab. Is that, man, it don't matter, you just keep rucking, just don't give up. You don't know when the miracle is going to happen. And I've read some self-help books afterwards, and years later, I hated reading back then, but now I read. And I had read a book, I just didn't read the right books. I got the right book this time, and it was like, so many people give up like 2 feet before the biggest gold mine you could ever find. And that's a true story where somebody literally did that. They sold their mine and they were 2 feet away. The next person got the biggest gold mine in America, because and they only had to go 2 feet to get it. So don't give it, your miracle to somebody else. Keep it and trust that God will make it happen. It may not look the way that we thought it was supposed to look, but it definitely is better. Like at this point, to that guy, is that you don't know what it's going to look like, and you got all these plans and dreams, but you just need to know that God's going to move, direct your path, and it's going to be better than you could ever imagine.
Yeah. Hey, Roger, it reminds me one of the greatest guys that wrote a self help book. Name was the Book of Job.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah, because when
Yeah,
I hear the
yeah.
stories of when as men, we feel like sometimes we lost it all. It always reminds me of Job, his resilience.
Amen. Hmm.
He said, "Lord, yet you slay me. Yet would I still put my trust in you."
Amen. Yeah, that's it, exactly. And I actually will use that too. Sometimes in counseling, right, with the right people, I will bring that as like, and what happened to Job after that? He didn't just get back a little bit; he got more, like more. And we know that he did get more family members, but he did. That's the one thing that was different. But his flocks, his riches, he was blessed even more. And I'm blessed beyond what I ever could imagine. And that's the way. That's God's economy. We call it God's economy. It's not our economy. It's just it's ridiculous. We would be happy if He gave us just what we were hoping for, but He gives it far abundantly beyond. And that's like with our kids. My wife and I could not have kids, right? And so my current wife and a wife of 21 years, we couldn't have kids, but God sort of blessed us with being able to adopt, right? And we felt like at every stop that we were going through, I thought my PTSD was going to stop me, but my psychiatrist signed off on stuff and let us have. I thought we were afraid, but in the end, it all worked out where we were blessed beyond what we could ever imagine with our kids, you know, and so yeah, that's a big thing. God is amazing. When we stop running from Him, when I stopped running from Him and realized, hey, you're there and you actually care, things exponentially will get better.
So we were talking about the best dad you can be. What would you say to your daughter right now if she's listening?
What Yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe I won't tell her. No, I'm just kidding. I would tell her that she was the inspiration for me to even take a chance. Before I ever believed that there was a creator in the universe, she was the reason that I wanted to at least go through rehab to try and do something different. I remember we in that rehab. This might sound corny for army dudes to be doing this, but they had us doing art stuff there, and I remember specifically wanting to make my artwork. It was some sort of little thing that you were going to send to your family, and I'm like, I'm going to do this for my daughter, right? And then another thing that they had you do while I was there that I recall like it was yesterday. It was like, okay, you're going to write your own obituary, and you're going to write a eulogy to your daughter. And I'm like, holy moly. So like when I, told her what I wanted, you put on there what you want to say or whatever, what you want people to remember you as, that was a catalyst to totally change my hardened, calloused heart that said, there is no God, there's no, chance. But, I'm like, it just totally changed me. So she was the catalyst for all of the change in my life, for my willingness to be open to do whatever it took to get through that program and not be recycled. Because if I got kicked out of that program because I wasn't applying the principles that they were teaching, I for sure had a misconduct discharge sitting on the other side. No sergeant major is going to give a second chance for somebody that failed out of rehab. So she was the catalyst for that, and so I'll just say that, and she continues to be that inspiration for me to want to be a better person. All my kids, even fast forward, it's like when I had some anger issues when I was working at that place with the PTSD. One of the things that made me my 7-year-old son, adopted son, said to me one day, he's like, I want a new daddy because I was getting hard again. And when I get hard, it just I was hurting. I basically hurting because I'm taking in other people's stuff and I didn't know what to do with it, and it was bringing back all my stuff. And so here I am lashing out at my kid, and I'm like, man, I need to go back and get back on what I need to do to keep going in the right direction. I'm gonna just trust God that He's gonna move me in the right direction. And so it's the willingness, and my daughter gave me the willingness. My kids give me the willingness to follow God and just trust that wherever it goes, it's going to be better than where we're at.
Oh, I love that. You know, us as Christians, we're taught to walk by faith, not by sight, right? And it's hard because a lot of people who have struggles and don't believe, it's like, well, I have to see it. I gotta this and that. Well, do you sit there and analyze this medicine your doctor gives you? Do you sit there and analyze all these food at the restaurant? They just serve you? No, you eat it. You're putting your trust in them to do what they say they do. And I believe us, we believe that, and God always delivers for us.
Amen.
Mhm.
Amen. That's right.
A great point, man.
I don't know if I told you all, but I was diagnosed with kidney cancer back in November, no, maybe just before November of last year, and had to have a kidney removed November 22nd. And for me, I'm kind of like my wife. She was very, very upset about that, and I'm like, I trust God, man. He's got me so far. I'm like, I just don't have the fear. I'm like, He's saved my life so many times, and then for some reason, if this was the one that He's going to take me out, I trust Him on the other side of that. If I go to sleep and wake up, I'm going to be with Him. But but that trust is just, hey, he's shown you many times before where he was there. Like in that moment, he just showed me my whole history of where he was at. And so if we don't forget that and we can go back, and when we get scared, like all these things, it's like the enemy wants us to be afraid and scatter us like cockroaches. Like, no, we just need to like, hey, I trust. I know you were there before. I'm going to trust it. And I got my CT scan back after they took the kidney out last week, and everything's great. And I'm like, thank you, Lord. And I did want to see the CT scan. I'm not going to lie. I'm like, I trust you, Lord, but I would like some proof too. Thank you, Lord. But so those are the things. It's like I just trust. People are like, are you okay? I'm like, I really am okay, because I just trust, because He's just proven so many times that He's going to be there when I didn't think anything was out there. And I'm like, no, it's there. Yeah.
Roger. So how does it feel, to go back to Daytona Beach and be able to serve veterans?
Yeah. Um, you know, something that veterans tell me all the time is the same thing that we all know as veterans, that there's a camaraderie that we get when we either deploy. There's a camaraderie when we are in the unit with people for a long period of time that you just don't get in the real world. So being around veterans, yeah, it messed me up when I was in stress treatment program over in St. Pete, right? Messed me up, but it was being around that camaraderie. It helped me, to help me sharpen the saw, get better at stuff. So then coming back to Daytona Beach and being able to do that on a regular basis, helping veterans, there's a camaraderie, there's a feeling, it's just you know, uh, I work at a vet center, and then basically we are like an outpatient thing for veterans, and it's just people come by my office. I'm the director, but don't hold that against me. And I leave my door open so people can come out of the groups. When there's groups, I always want to leave that door open so that they can come, and the veterans know they can come and like come and say hi. Because there is a camaraderie that just is second to none with people that have been through some stuff together, and everybody knows as soon as you talk to somebody, you can feel it, you know it, and there's just a closeness. So yeah, it's amazing. That's part of the God blessing, just like you don't know, this is going to open up a can of worms for you in the beginning, but when you work through it, you're going to be able to help people and be helped, right? So that also gives me a lot of encouragement when they want to come and talk to me and see me. So yeah, it's a blessing.
And so you've done a lot in your life thus far. Like you had some amazing stories, trials, tribulation that you overcome, and now looking forward, removing all the titles, removing your past, and what would you want? What do you want your legacy when you think about it? What do you want your legacy to be known for?
Um, I would want to be known for somebody that's humble, that cares, that just, man, I care so much for other human beings, right? Because I know what it feels like to be at the worst, and I just want to be able to hand it to somebody like it's a free gift from your creator. So my legacy would be just that all I did in my life was to care. I remember when I was a kid that when I would watch war movies with my dad, all I could see that guy that jumped on the grenade to save everybody else around him. That was the thing that motivated me. If I could save the people around me, that's all I want. That's all my purpose in the world is to help save those and give somebody a hand up. And now I know I don't have to jump on the grenade to die to do that, but I do have to go through some stuff to be able to better myself to get on the other side. But I will jump on that grenade, and that's what I'll do for my family. I'll do it for everybody, and just that would be the legacy. I would just want people to know that they are cared for, that they are loved not just by me, but by the Creator. The Creator wanted me to exist to share that love.
brother.
That's
Even
amazing.
when you tell that story, I see myself in that about the watching the army music. Man, that always gets me when the the guy that's making the sacrifice.
Hmm.
I,
Every
even
time.
with the grenade story, you know, I loved it so much. I threw 7 of my own in deployment,
Yeah, he did.
and one
Yeah.
firefighter I just threw them all.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that knowing about the desire is to care for, the desire is to you always been a big man of sacrifice. What would you tell that 17-year-old kid before he enlisted into the United, into the military? If you can go back and talk to him.
Just because I believe that everything happens for a reason, I would probably tell him, man, you're going to go somewhere. You don't know where it's going to be. It's not going to look anything like you think, but you just do you, and it will all work out, right? Because I wouldn't want to tell him to change anything because right where I'm at today, it all had to happen to make it work out. Eat all the bads, all the goods, all that had to happen for you to be where you're going to be, and just do it.
Man, Roger, I really do appreciate you for coming on the show, sharing your amazing story. Giving your words of wisdom. I'd like to thank you, brother, because you truly are a swaggy vet. You
Hmm.
know, from just from your story, to continue to move forward, to continue to press on, to continue to be a lighthouse for our veterans, that maybe so to prevent them from crashing against the wave, brother. We appreciate you and I salute you, man. I thank you for coming on the show, brother. I wish more and more happiness to you, and God continue to bless you, man, and you can continue to do your thing.
Yes,
Amen.
sir. Thank you so
Appreciate
much, Roger. We appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. I appreciate everything you guys are doing. I really, when I looked at your YouTube, man, it was just amazing. I'm like, man, I got to talk to these guys. When you reach out to me, I'm like, any way I can help. I mean, because you guys, what you're doing is amazing, and I really appreciate that. Because I mean, it spoke to me right away. So keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you, man. Hey, thanks for tuning in, y'all. Till the next one. Stay swaggy, stay strong. Peace.
Peace.